Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Conscious Counsel Podcast with your host, Cory Sterling. That's me. And I'm just jazzed up that you are here and that you and I get to spend this time together, just having fun and learning about super important information that can help protect and grow your business with confidence and clarity. So that's what I'm all about as a lawyer. That's what I'm all about as an entrepreneur. It's what I'm all about as a health and wellness professional. I love protecting businesses. I love growing businesses, and I love doing so with confidence and clarity. This episode's title is Someone Got Injured on My Retreat. Help! How was my help? I felt like that was good. I was actually nervous. I didn't sleep at all last night. I thought that my voice was going to crack when I said help like that. And really what this episode is about is understanding how a waiver of liability can be really, really helpful for you when you're running a retreat or just operating your business on a normal day-to-day basis. Waivers of liability are a really, really important document that essentially say that before you let someone participate in activities with you, they agree not to hold you legally responsible, and that even though they would have legal rights to sue you, by virtue of you letting them know what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you're doing it, what equipment's involved, what the risks are, what can happen if those risks materialize, and they agree and understand all of that information and voluntarily choose to still participate in the activities with you, legally they can sign away their rights that they would otherwise have. So this is the quintessential legal agreement that's required for retreat organizers, for studio owners, for trainers, for health coaches, for everyone. This is like the big document, also known as the Don't Get Sued document. So the reason why this is important to you is because if you're listening to this, you're probably doing something awesome. You're probably doing something really cool in the world, and you probably want to do more of it, and you probably want to do it in different ways. So if you're a studio owner and you want to start running retreats, that's a great way to do it. If you are a retreat organizer and you want to do it in more places and have better activities and a more wonderful experience, that's going to be part of it too. And the reason why you should really care about this is because this is the document that if and when something happens on one of your retreats or in your business on a day-to-day basis, again, it could be health coaching, it could be at a gym, it could be a CrossFit studio. This is going to be the document that you're going to rely on to avoid litigation and then avoid paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as per always, I have two stories that I'm going to share that's going to illustrate the different ideas behind a waiver of liability and why it should be specific. One of them is from a retreat. One of them is from a yoga studio. And just remember that what's at stake is your livelihood. What's at stake is your family's well-being. What's at stake is your revenue and your net worth. 2 times in my career, I've seen people lose everything because they did not have a great waiver of liability. It breaks my heart, and it's the reason why I'm choosing to spend some of my time in Japan in my little ryoku on my tatami mats telling you these stories because I want you're awesome. I love that you're awesome, and I want you to be protected. So I want you to keep the money that you bring in. I want you to be able to have your dream life, and securing the waiver of liability is a really, really important thing. So essentially, like I alluded to at the start, a waiver is a document that someone signs before you allow them to participate in services that clearly outlines what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you're doing it, what the risks are, what equipment's being used, what happens if those risks materialize. And with all of that information, someone can agree to participate and relinquish their legal rights, or they can choose not to sign it and not participate in it. And I've seen that happen as well. So let's start. We're going to start with the bad story. And this happened with one of my clients who was running an international retreat, and the retreat involved a nice little hike, and someone on the retreat unfortunately slipped and fell down the side of a mountain and broke their jaw and broke their teeth and had to be helicoptered out of the retreat. So that sucks. What also sucks is that the waiver of liability did not specifically address activities like climbing or hiking, and it didn't outline the specific injuries of broken bones, broken teeth, concussion, and the argument that the person who fell made legally. So remember, it always comes to legal position. How specific are your documents? How strong is your legal position? The argument made against my client was that, hey, you're right. My clients agreed to participate in a retreat. However, the specific activities that were included in the waiver of liability did not include hiking or climbing. And as such, your client, the retreat organizer, is not protected by the waiver of liability as it relates to these activities, because if the parties wanted to include hiking and climbing and the related injuries as part of the waiver, it would have been included, right? A really basic idea in law is that when you have an agreement that two parties sign, you always want to look at the intentions. So it's obviously the intentions of the parties to include everything relevant, but also if something is excluded, it is always understood or believed that it was the party's intention to exclude that information. So that basic waiver, when the client came to me and asked me to help them, I didn't draft the waiver for that for the retreat, but they needed my help to get out of the situation, which was a very, very bad situation that they were in. And the waiver that they were using was a very basic, probably ChatGPT or just like template waiver that didn't include any of the specific activities. And it was not fun. And there were a lot of hours spent crying. And there was a lot of money that was thrown at the problem to resolve the situation. In the low six figures. And it's just an example of how if we had the right waiver of liability, then we could have the right activities and risks included in that waiver of liability, and we would have a strong legal position if something were to have happened. And it's a situation where I was I was called into action too late before the agreement was drafted, and it just sucks. And everything about the situation sucked. And it cost a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of stress. And it's an example of why your waiver of liability needs to be specific. Now, for the good feeling story, and I feel like I have this tendency to start with the bad first because I want to close things out on a more positive note. I did have a situation once with a client of mine who ran a yoga studio and was doing aerial yoga with aerial silks. And we drafted the waiver of liability from scratch. We did everything specific to them, what they wanted. They had a specific niche of working with older clients. And so we had everything that was related to that in there as well. Studio's going on for years. I don't hear anything from the client for 3 or 4 years. And then one day I get an email, hey, Cory, can you hop on a call? Sure, we speak. And the client says, hey, there's been an accident. One of my clients was in the aerial silk and fell off and hit her head, and she's an older woman, and there's a lot of complications. What do we do? How do we deal with this? And as any good lawyer, I say the magic words, and those magic words are, please send me a copy of this signed agreement. And I received the waiver that we drafted, signed by the person who got hurt, and I was very relieved. And I was able to send an email to the person who was injured, and I said, hey, my client is super concerned about you, and we're here to support you, and we want you to get well soon, and, we really, really love you. You signed this agreement. In this agreement, we outlined the specific activity, which was aerial silk yoga and hanging from silks upside down. We outlined the specific injuries, including head trauma and broken bones that could happen, that could materialize if you were to fall. And then, later in the agreement, you agreed not to hold my client legally responsible we're here for you. We love you. We're so sorry that this happened, and we're going to do everything we can to support you to feel better. And that was the end of it. My client never heard back from the person. I think she ended up recovering and then coming back to the studio. And that was the last email that I sent. But I can tell you with 100% certainty that if in that situation, the waiver did not specifically have aerial silks and did not have the specific issues and damages that materialized, then we would not have as strong of a legal position. And the issue is something that could have been a lot worse. So I was very, very pleased with that. And for me, it was a story that was very affirming of waivers of liability. So essentially, both of the stories illustrate the importance of needing an agreement that outlines what you do, how you do, where you do it. So, for example, someone gets injured on a retreat. I'm so sorry that happened. Things like that happen every day. What did they sign? What activities were included? What risks were listed? What equipment is being used? Did those risks materialize? That's really how law works. Those are the questions that we come up against. And for me, in terms of your question of what you can do right now, if you're running retreats or you're running any sort of health or wellness business and you're not sure if your waiver is good enough, you can shoot me an email, Cory@consciouscounsel.ca, or you can find me on Instagram @consciouscounsel. Hey, Cory, what's up? This is the waiver of liability we're using. Do you mind taking a look? Awesome. I'm here to help you. I'm doing this to support you. It brings me so much love. And ultimately for me, my take on waivers of liability is that they are the quintessential legal document that's required to help protect you and your family and your assets and your business and your community. So I'm really on a mission to make this information fun and easy and light and practical so that you can understand the importance of being at best legal practices. And at Conscious Counsel, the agreement we've drafted most in the history of our business is a waiver of liability. Like I've said, we've never had a client using our agreement that we drafted for them get sued. And we've worked with more than 1,500 clients. So I'm really excited about that. If you need any support or you know that you're using a waiver that's not protecting you, just shoot us a note on Instagram and we'll be super happy to support you. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that the information resonates. I hope you're having an epic day wherever it is that you are. And remember the last and most important thing, whatever you do, make sure you are working with a lawyer who loves you.